So thank you everyone for being here today. I know we all had to escape the rain to get in here. But today Danielle is presenting her case. So if you would give us like a little recap of what you wrote for us, that'd be great.
Sure. So the kind of system I was looking at today to talk about is the staff where I work. When I came in as an intern there, the staff kind of as a whole was in pretty rough shape. There was a lot of conflict. They had actually brought someone in to do some like restorative circles and things like that because the staff were not really communicating and getting along. It has since gotten a little better. But just kind of being there in my time and being able to observe, I saw like how much it impacts the services they provide and the programs they're doing and things like that. And as an intern, kind of being on the inside and outside of it, it was an interesting position to be in because some of the staff would kind of come and tell us things because we weren't really staff members. So we kind of had that weird position of getting some information that everyone didn't have and then trying to figure out what to do with that information. And kind of just, I don't know what it's like to be a social worker in an organization like this when kind of the structure isn't there and how to help everyone kind of work together doing that. So.
All right, well, thank you. We're gonna start with Hannah, if you could read question 1 for us.
Yeah, so Danielle, what are your best hopes for this consultation?
I think overall, just to get a sense, I mean, we're all gonna be social workers and we're all working in different organizations, but I think even for me, like, getting a job as a social worker in an organization, like, what does that mean when, like, your staff structure's not great? And, like, how do you operate within that and how much of it is on you and how much of it isn't on you? So I guess just to get some ideas on what you guys think about that, because I think it's an interesting place to be. So I don't know. I mean, I'm almost at the end of my field placement, so I guess just looking forward, like, what that looks like when I go to my next place and see what the organizational structure's like.
Yeah, so suppose that your best hopes are realized. What will be different for you?
I mean, I guess best hopes are like being an organization where the staff is like well respected and everyone kind of understands roles and responsibilities and they know how to communicate well. So I mean, I guess in general for an organization, we all hope for that when we get a job to be in a really great, place.
Yeah, how will others know this happened?
I mean, seeing the staff at Harvest House, like I said, it's a little better now, but when I first came on, at least half of the staff confided in the interns that they wanted to quit. So, just being in a place where I like going to work every day, and I liked working there, and the staff all liked each other and they liked what they did. So the fact that they liked each other and they liked what they did, but they wanted to quit and they didn't want to come every day was super telling. So I guess being in a place where like I'm happy to be there.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that'd be hard, as an intern, having all these people confiding in you with that. Like, I could not imagine, because you're an intern, it's like, what am I gonna do,
Yeah.
All right, Jalen, could you ask question 2, please?
Yeah. What are your best hopes for this situation?
I guess my best hopes are, Harvest House is actually undergoing an entire organizational evaluation by an external party. So my best hopes are that they get through that process, which are about more than halfway through now, I guess. They have some good suggestions given to them and they actually do them. Because I think that's the biggest thing. They can have this evaluation, get some great suggestions, and then just be too busy or not have the buy-in from the executive staff and board to actually implement stuff. So my best hope is they actually do something.
Take that stuff into account.
Yeah.
For sure. I hear you.
Were you involved at all in the outside agency? Like, did they talk to you at all about?
I was. I actually got
okay.
to do an interview with them because they interviewed all the staff separately and they interviewed the interns. And then I've been part of a couple of the follow-up meetings where they've met like without the executive staff to get like honest feedback and opinions, and then they'll go into the next step. So, yeah.
All right, Lori, could you ask question 3 for me?
Okay, so Danielle, kind of similar little spin on what you've already mentioned, but suppose that everything you want is realized. What would be different? What would the clients notice? I guess is a different of angle? What would others notice?
Yeah, I definitely think if things kind of improved there, the clients would notice. I mean, right now, I don't think it's super visible to the clients how much discord is going on internally. But I think if the staff were working together better, the holistic services would be better. Because what's happening is a lot of the departments are all small. None of them are big staff. Maybe some of them just have one staff, some have 4 or 5. But they've become very siloed. So you might have someone coming in for housing support, but no one ever tells them that we have a food pantry, or someone be coming in to get baby and children's clothing, but they don't know that we have workforce development. And because the staff aren't great at communicating, that's not happening. So although they may not notice there's a problem, I think if the staff were functioning together better as a whole, they would see better supportive services.
Thanks. And anything for you specifically would be different? I think you would hinted on that, but.
Me as an intern there, definitely, I would have had a much different experience if the place was better organized. My supervisor, the executive staff is 3 people. It's the CEO, the CFO, and my supervisor, who is the chief innovation something. They changed her title a few times. She's kind of operations manager and kind of handles innovation diversity. She took on 3 social work interns this year. Yeah, and tried to make all these changes in the organization at the same time. So even us 3 interns were always very confused as to who was doing which task. Sometimes she would assign one of us a task, but then thought the other one was doing it. And even the other day, she's like, my one intern came up to me and she's like, oh, Brandy has been working on this grant. And I was like, oh, I was doing that grant. She's like, oh, so are we doing it together? She doesn't always remember what's going on, and she's all over the place. So she's super well-intentioned, but for me as an intern, I would have had a much more, I don't want to say I had a negative experience, but a much more held together and less frustrating experience.
Like a structured kind of one.
Yeah, because there's some days that was just I have 20 projects, and some days I don't know what to do. So, yeah.
All right, Hannah, could you ask question 4?
Yeah, so Danielle, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 stands for you are meeting your best hopes, or 1 is the opposite, where would you be right now?
I kind of feel like my place and the organization as a whole is maybe at a 5. I think they are functioning. They're all doing their jobs, they're all doing okay, but there's a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah, so what tells you that you and your placement are at that number?
Partially that, like I was saying, they do all in their own departments get their jobs done, and they serve clients, and people are, pretty happy, and people have good things to say about our services in the community. We have a very positive reputation among them. But I just know it could be a lot better.
So how do you know you are not 1? How do you know you're not a 4, lower number?
Okay. I think the lower we get, the clients would see it more. So I feel like if we had a lot of unhappy clients or people complaining hey, I didn't even know you did this here, but I was here last week. We don't see a lot of that. So I think the lower we got, the more the public facing side would notice what was going on.
Where would you want to be?
Oh, I would love them to be at a 10. They really are great, and the services they do are great, and they could if they could function better as a team, it'd be really great for them to be there. Not sure that is possible, but.
Yeah, what difference would you notice if they were a 6 instead of a 5?
I think even just take that one step, having the departments communicate better.
Yeah.
And maybe the next step to that would be having the executive team connect and communicate better with the rest of the staff, because that's a real big rift right now.
Yeah, and if you were that point higher, what would you be doing that you're not doing right now?
Oh, finishing projects. I spent the majority of my internships starting things that really now at the end I've only fully finished 1 or 2 of them. So I've learned a lot in doing them, but at the end you want to feel hey, I did this thing, and sometimes I'm just I did nothing. I mean, I didn't do nothing, but yeah, so feeling accomplished and completing things.
Yeah. Okay, Jalen, can you ask number 5?
Yeah. What are you already doing that is on track?
I mean, I think part of being the social work intern, you know, and the only other social worker in our, well, the only other person kind of operating as a social worker on our team is my supervisor. So I think being able to kind of be an outside observer as us and the interns are really good to give her feedback from that social work perspective, because sometimes you get like, oh, the HR perspective, are they doing their job? Is it a performance thing? Is it more of a restorative thing? Do we need to heal them before they can do their job? And that gets super blurred in a really small organization. So I think sometimes just being that outside voice and being like, hey, well, we were there and we observed this, and from a social work perspective, like, this is what we're noticing about some of the conflict. Is kind of, I feel I've been able to help out with that.
No, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know, considering like just thinking about like how can we get to the root of the problem versus like let's try to make these guys and gals like be friends again or be coworkers again. Like, can we just get to the root of the problem?
Yeah.
So just a follow-up question, how are you being trauma informed, or how is it what you're doing is trauma informed?
Well, I know I mentioned like a lot of the staff will kind of confide in me or talk to us as a group, the interns, because they're like, well, you guys are social workers. So I think just that piece has been helpful because, like I said, I can't really give them advice, and I don't really want to give them employment advice. I'm not HR, I'm not a social, you know. So just being able to kind of be a listening ear, kind of validate what they're saying, help them just kind of, you know, regulate a bit and think more logically for them to then be able to go and take the next step. Like, okay, maybe I do need to talk to my supervisor about this, or maybe this is my own thing and I need to work through it. But not giving them that, but just giving them the space to, you know, the space, basically.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting too what you said about, you know, like that social work perspective. 'Cause that's something I've seen at my placement too, like from like the teachers where I'm at. Like they're coming at it from a completely different view than I am. And that's just been something that's been like so wild to me. You know, like how are we not seeing the same kind of things?
Right.
You know. So, all right, Lori, can you ask question 6?
Yeah, so now going back to the clients, what is it you think that's happening for them that's already on track, or what do you?
I mean, the fact that the executive team recognized that there was some major issues is good, is good, and you know, the fact that they acknowledged it openly, because a lot of executive teams would be like, okay, that's your problem, you deal with that. Like I said, when there was some real conflict between specific staff members, they brought in an external person to do some restorative circles and get people talking. So the fact that they knew to bring in someone externally, and I think that was a lot of my supervisors pushing to be like, we can't just sit here and talk, like, we're too in it. And then as she talked to them and started to identify other issues, they hired her to kind of do this full evaluation. So to me, that's a huge strength for them, that they're even willing to look that deep, even if they don't follow through. That says something about them, so.
Alright, and Hannah, if you can ask question 7.
Yeah, so Danielle, what is the next small step?
I feel like I said, in the process of this evaluation, the next step is for her to bring a lot of the findings she got in our meeting to the executive team. So it's kind of a big step. Because they need to be open to hearing some pretty hard stuff, because the staff were pretty honest in what was going on and how they felt. So I think for me, the next step is just, I hope I can follow up with this and see how far they go with it, because I think it's really just being part of the process was really interesting, and seeing a staff that, like I said, and like when I first was there, half of them wanted to quit too. Most of them have stayed on and are feeling much better about their jobs. So
Yeah, so how will that be helpful?
well, happier people and jobs means better, more servants, you know, more clients served, and for me, it gives me hope for if I go into an organization that's kind of a mess, that, you know, that there's hope that organizations don't always stay a mess. There are ways to take steps and kind of fix things, so.
Yeah.
Alright, well, we're gonna move on to the wonderment phase now, so Danielle can move away
Really going
for us. Okay, And I guess I'll start us off. You know, like, I wonder how difficult it's been to have a good field placement experience with, like, the lack of structure. Because I know that's something that I've struggled with a little bit at my placement. Because I feel like I need structure, especially when I'm learning, to, like, really, like, thrive and learn well. So I just wonder how that's been impacting her.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, what is everyone arguing about? Like, what is, like, because I've worked in very high stress environments where, you know, it required, like, the implementation of behavior plans and physical restraints, and, you know, I've been in situations where I've gotten upset with, you know, coworkers about not following through when we called a restraint, or, you know, not running a behavior plan like the way that it's supposed to be ran. So I'm wondering, like, what is that serious that it's causing so many people to have such job dissatisfaction and wanting to quit, you know?
I just think it's interesting that as we sit within even this academic program, we spend a lot of time on the client system. And having to acknowledge that the organizational system is just as much as the struggle and stress and the barrier, and we could be getting tools to recognize that and do the things we do here, but apply that into a work environment where we actively listen and be empowered and not just get mad, you know?
I'm wondering a lot, and maybe, like, this is just pessimistic, like, final season, but, like, how Danielle is staying hopeful. Like, seeing an organization and being like, well, it got better, and, like, others can too. Because I think I'm to the point in the semester where it's like, everything's on fire.
It is.
So I'm wondering how Danielle is taking care of herself to continue that hope.
Yeah, and like I know Danielle mentioned a little bit that the clients are kind of noticing these issues, but I think, like, I'm wondering to like what extent, you know, are these issues being broadcasted for all of other staff and even the clients to notice, and, you know, how long has this been going on, and how many clients have had to complain in order for them to bring, like, an evaluation team in, and I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts.
What did I hear her say? The clients think God may have not noticed it as much, but we would provide a better type of services.
Yeah,
quality.
she said it was a little.
It was the staff that was really just like the
that's
clients may not be aware they could probably get more services, get more help.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that drama seems to be them kind of. Hopefully, that's a good question. You can ask Danielle, are they whispering from the clients?
You know what I'm also wondering? How do I say this? Who are these evaluation people? And can we call them to other organizations as well? Because I've worked in a lot of organizations, if I'm being honest, and I've seen, excuse my language, I've seen some real shady shit in some of these places, you know, like I've seen some crazy stuff, so I don't know.
Was it add on that, like Christy had mentioned, it's important that they take the input they get, because
exactly.
Part of government, all we do is evaluate and nothing changes.
Nothing
Oh my
ever
gosh,
changes.
yeah. I'm also just wondering, like, how, like, the difference between the people who might have left and the ones who were, like, saw it out, and like how they're feeling versus, you know, how people who have left are feeling, and, like, just what caused that immediate, like, reaction versus what was going so well that other people were like, okay, I can see this through.
Yeah.
And I wonder too, like, before, like, Danielle and the other interns joined, like, is the reason they were all confiding in them because they had, like, no one beforehand? Like, was there no, like, HR person for them to ever go to? You know, and they saw this as, like, the first opportunity.
It's probably the managers. The managers are probably messy too, because that's everyone's probably messy. That's why as soon as they see these interns, they're like, listen,
You're like,
I need to talk to you about something. I need to talk to you about something right now.
All right. Well, if Danielle would like to join us back, we're going to move on to the compliment phase. Is there anyone who would like to start first?
You can start and we can just work our way down
I
this way.
think the thing that just stands out is how beautiful it is that people want to do something good. And when you said the statement, like, I want to feel productive. I want to feel like I'm doing something. And like I've always think I've said this before, and I just hope that always stays with you, that you don't just become an employee and a paycheck, but you maintain that I want to be useful to somebody, because it doesn't seem like I always see that myself, so I appreciate that.
Yeah. I just want to comment like on like your understanding and your analysis of organizations, because I think a lot of the times we forget about that in social work. Like we're always so like kind of like what Lori was saying earlier, like we're always so focused on the client and their systems, and you know, sometimes even the staff. Like, you know, some organizations put a lot of emphasis on, you know, maintaining their staff and trying to keep their staff, but what about like the organization as a whole? And I think it takes a lot to take a step back and, you know, look at the bigger picture and say, well, you know, maybe the staff aren't the problem, maybe the clients aren't the problem, maybe, you know, the organization is as a whole is a problem. So I think it takes a certain person with a level of expertise and experience to be able to call those things out.
Yeah, I agree with both Jalen and Lori. I think you came into this presentation with just a lot of like grace and positivity, and you know, where I think in every one of our facilitations we were like, do you believe this? Like, you very much were like, it is, like, it's a great organization, things are working, these are the issues, like, we need that calm, collective positivity to actually progress, like, you know.
Professionalism?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, like, you can only do so much when you're like, everything sucks. But when you know, you really are just handling it with such grace and positivity, and even like, you know, you're a very like safe person, and I feel like that also is why a lot of those people are going to you, because you know, like this is an issue you're dealing with, and you see the best side of it, and that is so awesome. That's so awesome.
For sure.
Yeah, I agree too with what everyone said. You know, I think it's admirable how you've been like able to push through with you talking about like all the stuff you started but didn't finish. Like that would be very frustrating for me, and so that definitely takes a lot to, you know, keep going, find the wins, you know, which ones you did finish, and like things that are good happening. So I think that's really admirable of you. Thank you. All right, now we're gonna go into the debriefing. So we can start with Danielle. So how was this for you?
It was good. I feel like sometimes I am super negative, so the fact that I was able to put this on paper and present it, and it seemed like I was super positive, was great, because some days I go in there and I'm just done. So being able to kind of switch that perspective and look at it from up here really did help me see that like it really is a great organization. They are doing great things. So I think that helped me like change my being stuck in it every day to if I'm looking at this from the outside, what does it look like? So it was neat to change that up.
All right, and then for the rest of the group, what worked for all of you guys today? If anyone wants to start.
Honestly, I just think the like positivity we bring to group and like the safety we bring to group, I think that really like helped us today. And yeah, just Danielle's positivity on the situation.
It's definitely inspiring.
Right, yes, that's the perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
It's honestly low-key like inspiring, you know?
Because this feels, sometimes it'll suck the life out of you,
It does.
for being honest. I think for me it's a little bit of what Hannah said, and also just a little bit of the realism with it. You know, I appreciate that a lot. I think that in social work sometimes we try to make things what they're not, and you know, organizations are a big, you know, issue within social work. So like I was kind of similar to the compliment I gave you. I don't know I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm just thankful for this whole experience. Just being able to, have these conversations with you guys and, discuss our dilemmas and our situations. And just kind of gain insight because, we all think differently. So, yeah, I just appreciated this whole experience.
I think what works in general is just, again, I think piggybacking on Hannah, the safety that we know that this is not a judgmental place, that we're talking about these issues. Of course, it helps that we're not the manager making the choices or the coworker. We're not, we have no reason to take sides. We can be neutral. And I also kind of wish that we can take something like this and throw this into the professional environment that so many of us are not even struggling with the client system, but with broader systems that deal with the client, and that's kind of interesting. But that's not really been our challenge in the Philippines with the organization of the client.
Well, thank you guys. I know this was our last one, so thanks for sticking through it. But I think we really created a good group.
I say it in every single one of my
Me
reflections.
too, every
Yeah.
time. Every
I'm like,
time.
the power is within our group.
Truly. Definitely is.